Yeah, and the question then becomes, okay, so how do we create that shift? How do we create that seismic shift? And there's something that I heard you say on another podcast that I think is a beautiful, I guess you could say, answer or start of an answer to that question. And I just want to read that out.
Sure.
We're storytelling creatures, and part of the story of not just genetic evolution, but cultural evolution is that through story and through the way we communicate with each other, you can actually start shifting cultural evolution in a different direction than it's going in terms of being business as usual. And storytelling, in that quote in particular, is something that resonates with me on a deep level. So I would love to just hear more of your deeper thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. The wonderful teacher, was a dear friend of mine, Joanna Macy, um, talks about a great turning, and stories would be absolutely a part of that. The great turning would be realizing that, the way I would say it is, we've had a case of mistaken identity. Whoops, we thought the center of experience was only your individuality, and that was a mistake. I mean, a big lethal mistake, actually. But we can course correct through stories, through being in nature and feeling into our connection. So it's not just a thought, it's a feeling. But the stories guide us. They're doing practices like the wheel of awareness practice. All these things, even having words like muy or intra-connected. People go, why do you have to have intra-connected instead of interconnected? Well, because you are not just I'm here, you're there, we're interconnected. That keeps the separate self there. That word doesn't actually take us where we need to go. So that's why the interconnected word is useful. Muy is another example. We don't want to just lose the inner importance of our experience through just being a we. And so muy helps you with a single 3-letter word that I've been trying to get in other languages. It doesn't quite work as symmetrically, whatever, as it does in English. So a lot of people, I was just in Norway and Sweden and other, places where even where English isn't their first language, they like muy as a word. So just as a simple, 3-letter word for our human family, you say, look, and I did this in a school I used to consult to in New York City, the Blue School, where, we said to the kids, who you are is a muy.
Mm.
And when the graduating class graduated, it was one of the most beautiful things. I would get notes from the parents saying the kids are texting them to each other, eighth graders who are now out in the world, in New York, saying, "We wants to go, get some ice cream. Okay, we will see you there." But it was really beautiful because if you feel into just the word, even just a simple linguistic term, you know, and that's what stories do. They go
Yeah.
back into the structures that filter reality. You go, oh, I'm a me and a we. I am both. And that's the story we need to tell. And that's how cultural evolution happens. And listen, people always quote Margaret Mead in the beautiful quote when she says, don't think that a small group of people, let's say, telling the new story of this larger sense of self, of we or whatever words we're going to use, um, don't ever think that they can't change the world, because indeed it's the only thing that ever has. So, there are groups. Inner development goals is one. For people who don't know it, just check out what we do from Sweden, innerdevelopmentgoals.org, where you can develop a hub of like-minded people, whatever city you're in. But we now have almost 1,000 hubs where this is a movement to try to realize we can work with the inner aspect of the mind. That's where inner comes from, of inner development goals. But ultimately, when you go inward, you realize it's inter, and then you realize, oh, it's the whole shebang, intra. So what I'm trying to push them is to change the name of the organization to, 3 IDG. So the inner, the inter, and the intra development goals. I don't know if they'll go for that, but I think it's a fun term. Just put the number 3 in front of it, 3 IDG. But there's a lot of, even if you look at a related group related to IDG in Sweden is starting something called Lakefront. So just look up lakefront.org or something in Sweden, where we're getting some people to live together, change makers, to tell the story just like you're talking about, Tim, and to start thinking, this can be a way where we wake up our human family to the deeply interconnected lives that we all share.